Well, people, just want to say I'm now in Luxor. Flew in from Cairo yesterday and I'm out. So my hotel's just round there. That's a bus. Yeah, my hotel's round the corner. There's a bus. Here comes the geezer on a donkey. Giddy up, boy, giddy up. There's a nice little rider there. Cool, cool. So, my hotel was right next to Luxor Temple, and this is the causeway. The avenue where the processions would take place. There's the sphinxes. Yeah, you're not allowed over there actually. There's the police just over there, so you can't jump over this wall. But Luxor Temple's just here. Yeah, so we're in the temple now, Luxor Temple. It cost 100 Egyptian pounds to get in. But 100 Egyptian pounds is only £5 in English, so it was a fiver. How about that? Nice saying, this is Rameses. Again, Rameses II, Rameses the Great. Oi, oi, have a look.
This temple they built by the time of Amenhotep III and Rameses added the Tutankhamen. There's so many Rameses. Who's the great one? The one opposite the Rameses II. Because that pharaoh ruled Egypt for a long time, 67 years. So during his time, the people were adding more buildings, more statues. That's why many things were left from the time of Rameses II.
Can I join the tour? Can I pay and join the tour, yeah?
What do you think? That's okay?
Will that be okay?
Half. Okay?
Yeah, half. That sounds fair.
Half you pay?
Yeah, okay. half. Discount.
Okay.
Yeah. So how much was the original price?
I will charge you only 100 Egyptian.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay?
That sounds good.
You
nice
come
one.
with us.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're
Cheers.
welcome.
Just
You see, so they built the temple.
How much? Sorry, how much are you charging me?
Go on, talk.
Sorry.
If you want to talk, you can.
No,
Don't worry. You see, I will charge you a price of what I charge you.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine. You're welcome. Where are you
Nice
from?
one, cheers.
England?
Thank you very much. Yeah. And yourself?
No, Malaysia.
Oh, wow, fantastic. Malaysia, it's close to China, is it? Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Nice one.
You know,
About 3,000
the people, this town was called Tipa.
Sorry?
Tipa.
Thebes.
It means Tipa. You say Thebes, the Spanish they say Tebas, the Germans they say Teben, the Dutch
nice.
they say Teb.
The Germans say table.
Teb.
Tape. Okay.
Teben.
Table, yeah, I thought you said that.
Teben,
Nice
yes.
one.
And the English speakers, they say Thebes. TH, they pronounce it Thebes, so they say Thebes. But we call it means the place where they put the statues. And the Arabs, when they came from the Arab countries and they found out that the houses of the Christians in the town were 2 or 3 floors, but the houses of the Arabs in their countries being 1 floor. And they had a house of 2 floors being the palace for them, so they called this town Luxor. It means the palaces. Amenhotep III, when he built the temple, ordered the people to make it facing the north, facing Karnak, because being built at the big chapel belongs to Karnak temples. Okay, so they built the temple by the time of Amenhotep III, 1400 before Christ, especially for the feast or in the memory of the festival of the holy marriage of Amon and his wife. Once a year, the high priest and the priest of God Amon, they had to carry statues on the boats of Amon and his wife, also their son, above their shoulders from the temples there, to put them above the big boats, and sailing boats were putting the big boat above which they put the statues of the boats and the holy boats of the gods coming up upstream from Karnak to Luxor Temple over the river for the statues of Amon and his wife to enjoy themselves once a year. Then they had to carry statues back to Karnak. Been one night during the New Kingdom, but they kept adding more nights to the festival until the late period was 27 nights at the honeymoon for the statue of Amon and his wife.
Who was the wife of Amon?
Amon Mut. Amon, he had two wives. Imnet, because his name was Imen, now we say Amon. Imnet and Mut. Imnet had the lady above her head, the red crown.
Imen and Mut.
Yeah. And Mut, it means the mother, because she been the mother of Khons, the moon god.
Yeah, so she's not the mistress, she's the mother.
Mother.
The great mother.
And the mother
You
of
follow,
the god
you do
Khons.
Egyptology?
No, but I follow Egypt. I study a little bit.
Rameses II added the open courtyard and the pylon and the obelisk and the statues to the front of the temple of Amenhotep. Amenhotep, when he built the temple, he ordered the people to put some of his sphinxes in south of Karnak. Then the other pharaohs kept adding more of their sphinxes from the north to the south until being ended here by the time of Amenhotep, about 348 years before Christ. The head of the king above the body of the lion, and were trees between each sphinx and the other. So were trees and sphinxes all the way to from here to Karnak, 2 kilometers.
Wow.
And you see these statues being buried below the sand and the dust which came by the wind. So these more intact than the others, the sand being lower here and the dust. So the people of this town damaged parts of the heads of these statues. The Egyptologists, they made the digging here around in 1850s. And they found this part of the avenue about 8 years ago. They damaged many houses and buildings on the way to Karnak, and they found the rest of the avenue except part of it underneath the Coptic church. Rameses.
How many churches do you have? I saw one.
Two churches, one there and the other where the towers, the big.
They're so close
Yes.
together. What's this called? Wasn't it something lion something?
That's the sphinxes, the head of the king above the body of the lion, and the head cover which called Nimis, like the scarf around the head.
So
and
what are they
above the
doing here?
shoulders.
Why is it looks
Here
so?
they trying to put some restoration, to put some cement and gypsum between the damaged pieces of stones of the original stone floor. And here you see there were two obelisks here, one still standing from the time of Rameses II, the other obelisk being transported by the order. Huh? You're back.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
So you see this obelisk still standing, the one being there being transported from here to Paris now in Place de la Concorde in Paris, being transported by the order of Muhammad Ali, the king of Egypt at 1834, as a gift to the king of France by that time, Louis Philippe.
What did he do?
Or
he allowed.
he exchanged the obelisk, or yes, he being the king. Nobody could say no.
So he gave one obelisk.
Yeah, as a gift to the king of France, Louis Philippe, 1834. And
Thank you very much.
the other obelisk, the other obelisk still standing. Or maybe he exchanged the obelisk with the clock which in the citadel in Cairo, in the mosque of Muhammad Ali, but that clock doesn't work or didn't work at all. You see, on the base of the obelisk, the figures of the 4 baboons, because the monkey or the baboon being symbol of praying or to the sun god. The baboon is the animal which climb up to the top of the tall trees early morning, and when it sees the first sun rays, the early morning sun rays, they raise their hands like this and make a noise, so it being symbol of praying to the sun god. Okay, so the baboons on the base of the obelisk, and the obelisk being symbol of the god Ra, and the top of the obelisk looks like the pyramid being covered in ancient Egypt by gold. By the midday in summertime in July, the sun straight in the middle, so the gold from different nations of the obelisk reflects in the light, looks like the shining sun. The people could see it from miles,
Miles, I'll bet.
And the 2 tall grooves on each side and the square holes, the tall grooves where they were going to put thick and tall pieces of wood on the top of the wood, the flags from fabric linen, and the square holes to put pieces of wood by sides to keep the flagstaff standing.
Good.
Not too far now. And you see, if you come to this side, please, you see the sitting statues of Rameses II and 4 standing statues. Okay. Recently, they put the 2 stones of those 2 statues back, the gray granite stone statues. If you come here, please, you see the figure of the King Rameses II on his chariot while he was fighting against the enemies in the town of Kadesh. You see the town of Kadesh in Syria. And underneath the figure of the horse and the chariot, the figures of the wounded and the killed enemies. You come this way, please. If you stand here and you use the camera, please, and you see the double figure of Habi. Habi, the Nile god with the big chest, big belly, roll belly, because he been rich god. When we see fat man in the village, it means that he's rich man, drinking much, eating much. So the god Habi, he being the Nile god, he had so much salt and water to support the land, the valley every summer. So he been represented by the rich men. He's joining the lotus or tying the lotus and the papyrus plants together, up together, making the union of the south and the north of the country. Around what? What's this? This is not the Nile and the valley around.
Yeah.
No. Some they say this is instrument rababa. No. These are the lungs and the trachea. Means that the south and the north of Egypt looks like in one body, one country. This was called Semitawi, the union of the 2 lands.
Semitawi.
Semitawi, you remember?
Lord of the 2 lands.
And you see here they cut the holes there. They cut the holes and they put bits of stones to hold the stones of the walls of these together. You see these stone ties.
Yeah.
Still here from ancient Egypt.
Yeah, good.
Stone ties, they made it out of granite. Without these stone ties, this was going to be done.
Close. Nice one. Very clever. Very clever
his
people.
leg here you see the figure of his wife, Nefertari. You see Nefertari. And her sandals on her feet.
And what's the king's name?
Rameses II.
Oh, the same guy who built Abu Simbel.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you see his statue here, the statue of his son between his legs and his sandals on his feet. This Amenhotep, who died, his first son who died by the time
So this is 3,500 years old?
Yes, 3,300 years old. Yes, granite stone. And the granite stone, the great granite or the
So it's 1200 BC. 1200 BC.
1270 BC.
Yeah.
And this, they painted, the pink granite or the gray granite or the black granite, or being painted. You see a little bit of the red color and the yellow still here. And this statue being cracked. You see the crack here, cracks there, and the elbow also. They didn't like to throw it away.
Yeah, of course.
After they made it and they put it here, so they cut these small holes and they put the stone ties. But the stone ties being taken away by the people, the Christians and the Muslims were living here later to use them to grind the wheat, the corn, alhamdulillah. To use them to grind the wheat, the corn and so on. This is the open courtyard. They left it open under the sky.
Is this a temple as well?
This is the temple for the festival
Luxor.
of the holy marriage of Amon and his wife. And you know the people who came to this part of the temple during the festival, in the summertime, the festivals of the gods. So they came here, the nobles, the rich people, the governors of the towns, the ministers, the scribe men of the pharaohs, the generals of the Egyptian army also. When they came here, they used to stay here for 1 hour or 2 hours and back home, but few of them were staying by the midday, so they need the shade. That's why they built the columns around 2 rows of the columns, and they built the stone roof above the columns and the walls. Part of the ceiling still there.
What's this?
To get the shadow.
Who built this?
This is Rameses II, who added this part to the temple and the pylon and the obelisks and the statues. Rameses II from the 19th dynasty. You know, here also these 3 rooms were built by the time of Hatshepsut, and Rameses added these columns from granite stone columns from the pink granite, and you see the titles above the lintels, stone lintels. But because of this, Rameses II, when he added this open courtyard and to build a pylon, the gate, he couldn't move these 3 chapels out of their original place a little bit to the west to make the entrance here with the same axle of the old temple, you see? So that's because he couldn't move these chapels away from their holy place, so the entrance, which they made it by the time of Rameses, It's not with the same axe of the that one of the old temple.
So who were the three chapels dedicated to?
To the god Amon, his wife, and their son.
What's the name of the son?
Their son Khons.
Consort.
Questa è la roba qua faraonica, un altro, trova una moschea islamica dentro il tempio faraonico. Questa moschea risale al medio del tempio di parte inserita dello stesso. Funzionante? E la famosa moschea da noi qua si chiama la moschea del santo santo di Mano. Perché c'è una moschea sempre dentro un tempio faraonico? La risposta è
If you look at the end of the temple, you see the niche because that part of the temple being used by the early Christians at the church. They needed larger church, so they to build this Coptic church, so they tore the stones from the walls or around the temple. They removed the figures and the hieroglyphic from the stones. But these were the foundations, so they didn't care about this. So you see some of the blue and the red color and some hieroglyphic, parts of the hieroglyphic. This was the entrance of the church, and these are the windows, the rectangular windows of the church.
Nice.
But later, when the sand and the water got higher, being up to here, so the people, the Christians, left this church and built another one in the town. So this church, because the columns and the walls of the church, the columns kept the sand and the dust which came by the wind over the years, so the sand being up to there. The Muslims, so this, it was like the height of sand. And dust from there from outside and till the end of the temple.
This would be coming up the top.
Just like the village or small town.
Buried.
Okay? The Christians and the Muslims were living about it. But the Muslims wanted to build the mosque up here. So you know the Muslims, they didn't know that there is a Christian church underneath. So they dug the ground to build the foundations of the walls of the mosque, but they found the upper parts of the walls of the church. They thought that it's parts of the stone wall of the temple. So they used the upper parts of the walls of the church as the foundations above which they built the mosque. So the sand being up to there. Okay, Mariette, the French Egyptologist, got the permission to work here in 1850. And so he asked the Muslims to close the gate of this mosque up here and to open another gate on the other side. And this mosque is still in use since 900 years ago.
Very good.
So here the upper parts of the statues being damaged by the people were living above the sand, because as I
Yeah,
told
yeah.
you, it's been like small
Yeah,
town,
yeah, yeah.
except two statues still intact there because they are shorter, smaller than the
Okay.
others.
Nice.
They didn't care about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, good. That was, so they was just under. Yeah.
The Egyptologists, they found the head of this statue below the sand, so they put it back
Ah,
above the
this
statue.
one,
You see
this
the
one here.
face. Yeah, because of the face and the beard, the snake, double crown intact. To take picture of that, please, you come and you stand here. You see, from here you can take picture of the statue and the columns behind it with the shade, and the sun shows the difference between each column and the other.
Okay.
And this here, if you come to this side here, you see if you climb up here, then you go up here, up, then you take picture of the pylon, the old and
Yeah,
the new
yeah,
minarets,
yeah, it's a nice shot.
the
yeah.
mosque, and the church, all in
All
one
together?
picture. Yes.
No, I've got it.
Okay, we'll go there. I'd like to show you the more intact figure of Nefertari. معلش ثواني بس يصور. تفضل. ثواني. Also, if you come here and you see behind this leg, you see the figure more intact, because the other one of Nefertari, part of its face being damaged, here more intact face, and she's wearing the long robe. And the headdress, which is nicely decorated by the figures of the cobras and the sun disk and the horns and so on. The back side of the statue being decorated, you see by the names and the titles of the king.
Five?
Rameses II. The names and the titles of the pharaoh.
Is it 5 names? 5
He
names?
had 5 titles,
And
not 5 names, 2
birth-
names. The birth name and the coronation name,
Nice
but
one.
5 titles. Here the ceiling part of it still there, and the soup, because the people were living above the sand, they put fire for cooking and so on. So the upper parts of the walls and the ceiling being covered by the soup.
Wow, amazing stuff, eh?
You will see here the figures of the captives from the northern countries with the beard and long soft hair being tied by ropes around their arms, around their necks, under the chest of each of them, the oval with the names of their towns. From the northern countries, but here from the south. So you see the Africans with the short nose, big lips, curly hair, and earrings. The Africans.
In the, have you been to Abu Simbel?
No.
No, I'm going there in 10 days' time.
How long are you in
For
Egypt?
the sunrise.
How long are you in
3
Egypt?
weeks. 1 week in Cairo, 10 days in Luxor, and 3 days in...
You're fascinated.
As well.
Are you fascinated by Egyptology?
Yeah, yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Yeah, I love it, I love it, I love it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and the ancient art, you know. 5,000 years old art. And you never seen nothing like it. And the colours, have you been into the Valley of the Kings? Have you been to the Valley of the Kings?
Are you going?
I've been, I went today.
How was it?
Oh, outstanding.
See, what I'd like to do is to just sit and just...
Yeah, you can do that in the tombs.
Really?
They're with the,
You see
all
here,
colours.
this part of the temple being added by the time of Rameses, but from here to the end of the temple being built by the time of Amenhotep III, 1400 years before Christ. And you see the two rows of the columns 21 meters high, with the tops being done in shape of the open papyrus flowers. Okay, and this being surrounded by the walls and being roofed. Do you hear me?
Yeah, no, never. He's concentrating.
So, being surrounded by the walls and being roofed by the people during the Roman period, pushed the stones of the ceiling down to use this, and from the upper parts of the walls to use them outside. So heavy stones on their way down damaged parts of the capitals of the columns and damaged parts of these statues here. These were the statues of Amon and his wife.
Where?
You see, they made them out of the kind of marble. And but Rameses II, he ordered the people to move the names of Tutankhamen and to carve his names. But from the first we know that this being done by the time of Tutankhamen and his wife. And you see the other
But he
group.
was very young, wasn't he?
Yeah,
You
not
see
18 or 19.
Tutankhamen and his, or the god Amon and his wife, and the separate statue of Amon, they made them by the time of Tutankhamen and his wife. So they made them out of kind of marble.
Wow.
This columns 21 meters high, with the tops being done in shape of the open papyrus flowers, and were painted. Little bit of the color still there. You see the blue and some reddish or yellow still there.
Yep, very good.
Okay. There, but the columns there, they made them in the shape of the papyrus reeds or the papyrus plants were packed together. And the walls here or there being with the same height of the columns, but being damaged during the Roman period when the Egyptian workers pushed the stones down to use them outside. This is the open courtyard being surrounded by the walls and the walls being with the same height of the columns. You see part of the wall still there in the corner, and that wall still standing beside those columns there. And they made the digging here to just the ground to see how far is spring water down, how much of the salt in the ground. Then they found some statues below the ground.
Oh, wow.
They collected 22 statues during the late period 450 before Christ to hide them from the intruders. Because the people from the town of Ashur in Iraq attacked the north of Egypt, you know?
Ashur,
You know about that?
The Assyrians.
Yes.
No,
the
tell me.
They came 450 years before Christ attacked the north of Egypt. But the people in Luxor are afraid that those people come to the south, they will damage the statues here. So they collected 22 statues of the pharaohs and the gods, and they put them below the ground.
That's fine, I hid it.
Until being found here in January 1989. They took them to Luxor Museum, but few years ago, they took many of those to the new museum in Cairo.
Yeah.
So they're going to open it in less than 2 years.
So which king was it? It was from Ashur. Which king was it that came from Ashur? Was it Ashurbanipal? Or
I don't remember.
yeah, okay.
This is the first hall of columns here, where 32 columns supported the stone roof, which been taken away by the workers during the Roman period to use them outside. But the problem for those Egyptian workers during the Roman period, the heavy stone lintels, and wasn't enough space to have hundreds of people there to push the stone lintels down. Too heavy, you see?
Yes.
So that's why the column is still standing. And there,
Wow.
columns mean that the place been roofed. So you see part of the ceiling still up here.
Yep, hold on, can we have a quick look, please? Hold on, please. Yeah, go on.
Color from the rain.
Nice.
Protected the color from the rain.
Yeah, nice,
And,
nice blue.
The yellow, the blue, the white, and red still here.
But it's not the dark blue. Is there a special blue?
Some light blue, some turquoise, some dark blue, light blue. And you see these are the figures of the high priests here, with the 7 heads wearing wide long robes,
Yeah, I've got 'em.
and carrying the boats of the gods.
Nice.
And the king up here, his figure being protected by the vulture, the god is Nechbet, you see, with the wings like this.
Yeah, of course.
And some of the colors still there. You come with me, please.
Okay.
you come around here, you will see this is the room which we call it the Holy of the Holies. And you see where 4 columns here. You see the foundations or the bases of the columns, where 4 columns inside this large room supported the ceiling. And between the 4 columns, they put the wooden shrine and the statue and the boat of the god Amon-Ra above the table. But when Alexander the Great came to the north of Egypt, the high priest of Amon here said, maybe he come to share in the feast of the god Amon-Ra. If he come here, Alexander's, then we must show him his name and his figures like the other pharaohs before. So he ordered the people to damage the 4 columns from inside the old Holy of the Holies to build this smaller room in the middle. Then they carved the figure of Alexander, dressed like the pharaoh, bringing the offerings to the god Amon-Ra. Wow. Alexander's bringing the offerings to the god Amon-Min, the god of fertility for the men. And you see here the name, the cartouche with the name of Rameses. But the decoration here from the time of, dating from the time of Amenhotep, who's kneeling and brought the offerings, and look at the heap of the offerings, the birds, the animals, and so on, the fruit also, the doves and geese. And this is the list with the names, the figures, and the numbers.
What animal is this?
This is the bull slaughtered animal, you see? Slaughtered animal and its leg above it. So the heap of the offerings, and then this is the list with the names, the figures, and the numbers of the offerings being brought by the king to the statue and the boat of the god Amon-Ra. You see the figure of the boat of Amon-Ra.
And was there some beer as well? Beer? Is there beer?
Also,
beer.
Yes, they made it out of the grapes.
Yeah.
He's as good as Nile.
Yeah, stronger. With bits.
You see, they cleaned the walls up here. They cleaned the walls up here from the soot and the dust, so some of the color is very clear here and there, and also there. Okay?
Yeah.
And here, you see the slaughtered animals, the slaughtered oxen or the bulls being brought by the king here at the offerings. And you see here the king, similar to those, kneeling and brought the offerings to the front of the boat of the god Amon-Ra.
This is the boat of Amon, yeah.
Yes.
Amon's the hidden.
No, the same age. All the same age. Is this the cartouche? This is the royal cartouche where Alexander the Great name is written. Really? And the word cartouche is derived from the cartridge of a bullet of a gun. Yes. Jean-Francois Champollion is a French nobleman who deciphered the Rosetta Stone, where he noticed the cartouche of Cleopatra and Ptolemaios, and all the predecessors thought of every hieroglyphic character as a word, like the Chinese characters. But he came to the realization that every character is a letter, and you put a group of letters, you make a word, and a group of words, you make a sentence, and a group of sentences, you make a part. These are Rameses II being, Alexander the Great is being acknowledged with various gods and goddesses, and here is the god Amon with the male erection, as that is one of the legends of creation, and that dark penis over there have a story where married couples for several years who do not have children, men come to Luxor and stroke his male organ, while women go to Karnak, where they go 7 times around the scarab. But the problem, it works. So it started having a myth. Through the centuries, people come from the 4 corners of the world. If they tried medicine, tried magic, tried voodoo, tried everything, they come try Rameses II and never tell you. Bang! That is the ancient Viagra. Yes. From people rubbing it, it's the old of the fingers.
Step in, please.
Sacando como perfumes las escenas arriba del faraón. Vamos, y esta también para.
This is supposed to be the sanctuary. It's like the sanctuary. Remember, this morning I told you it should be the first to be built, the sanctuary, and then be built around it. Remember that? The sanctuary here, that's not the original one. This is actually the last thing to be added to the temple. This sanctuary was added by Alexander the Great. Alexander's, remember the pharaonic period, then came the Greeks. Alexander the Great conquered Egypt 300 years. Alexander the Great was obsessed by the idea of becoming a pharaoh. And he didn't want to fight with us. He told them, I respect your wishes. I respect your gods. I'm the son of the gods, just like the pharaohs before me. And to show you my respect for your gods, I'm going to build you a sanctuary. So he came to this temple. There was 4 columns here. See this half a column is here. See that? This half a column is here. That's another one. And the other 2 columns on this side. They cut the 4 of them to build his own sanctuary. And here he is, acting like an Egyptian king, while he built his name is Kartush. This A-L-K-S-M-D-R-S. Alexander's. Making offerings to the god Amon. So this is built by Egyptians. Egyptians did that, but during the Greek. While this is 1,000 years.
These were the gates here, one inside. These were the original gates, were closed by wooden doors, so the high priest had to open the wooden door to come to take the offerings out of the storage rooms. So you see here the list, look at the big list here with the names, the figures, and the numbers of the offerings were kept inside the rooms. And also another list there. So these were the storage rooms, not chapels for the statues, other than say. And this been roofed, so to get a little bit of the sunlight in, so they got, or they left the square holes there, you see? Yeah. Up there. And these were the storage rooms. This for the large room. They couldn't have one piece of stone to make it as a ceiling, so that's why they built the columns and then the stone lintels and the stone ceiling above.
Yeah, very good. Stone ceiling, amazing.
Yeah.
And they got all the stones
So
from elsewhere. The stone wasn't here.
The stones, no, not from the mountains. The mountains here. The mountains here.
Oh yeah, they're not
from
too far.
Limestone.
Limestone.
This
So nice,
from
easy.
the south, from nearby north of Komombo, 170 kilometers north of Luxor.
Nice one.